Right. Thanks, Mark. You can mute until it's time to be sworn in.
Good morning. The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. This meeting is being held at the office of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North 3rd Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. The time is 10 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Roussel,
Here.
Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romick,
Here.
Commissioner Guidry, Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Thank you. There being no old business to take up at this time, we will move on to the approval of the March 27th, 2024 minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Motion is approved. Moving along to item 5 on the docket, consideration of change orders.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 485 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 458, placed 24 in pending status, and denied 3. Reasons for rejection: 2 for applying a homestead exemption on an LLC, 1 in Allen Parish, and 1 in Tangipahoa Parish. 1 in St. Charles Parish for not providing an occupancy date when applying a homestead exemption. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? The motion is approved.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 48 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 22 and keep 26 remaining in pending status. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 22 prior pending change orders and keep 26 remaining in pending status.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Motion is approved. We'll now move on to the item number 6 on the docket, the appeals. Mr. Hoffman's going to swear in the taxpayers.
Present in the room, and you'll be testifying in any of today's matters. Go ahead and stand. I'm going to administer an oath. I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath, and I'll also ask you to state your name. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
David here, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, I do. Gregory Miller, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, I do.
Aaron Miles. Eric Yeager, I do. Thank you. Mike.
John McGregor, I do.
Thank you.
Buchanan, I do.
Thank you. Doug, may I have a seat? Chairman, I'll deal with the.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. Appraisers, if you'll unmute, I'll administer an oath and then indicate to you individually to affirm the oath. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mark?
I do.
Nicole?
I do.
Luke?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, the first item on the docket that we'll take up today is the appeal of John Richard McGregor versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-74008. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I will do that. Good morning, folks. Yes, my name is John McGregor. My wife and I have purchased and resided at our current home residence in New Orleans since 1991. It was a transfer in with an oil company. We've retired there, and I'm here today to appeal and first time appeal for the residents at 1526 6th Street. Turned off my phone because today's my 70th birthday as well, so I thought I'd avoid that interruption. Thank you. So the assessed value was 1.657 and change million dollars. That was a $748,000 increase over last year. I have submitted in evidence my initial appraisal, and I did that in July, the moment I received the assessment that I did. I did a second appraisal, which is not in evidence, but I have it here, and I'll mention it in passing, but it's consistent with my first appraisal. It's also fairly consistent with the appraisal that was provided by the tax commission as well, which was in January. I'm also going to mention the fact that I did an equivalency comparison, I learned the new term today, of the homes near my own home using the tax rolls, and I can probably just draw an inference there between the two to suggest that I think we're going to be much closer to the appraisals than was the initial assessment. So, in starting off, so as I said, I had an appraisal made in July of last year. That was a 4-property appraisal by a very reputable firm. And it was a $110,000 appraisal, $1,110,000 appraisal. You're probably wondering why I submitted for $1,090,000. That was because on that appraisal, there was a slight correction required to the square footage. Of 4,089 became 3,996. So that's why my submittal was for 1,090,000, not the 1,110,000 of the initial appraisal. And I will mention here, the second appraisal, I did not submit, I actually missed the deadline, but came in at within $40,000 of the appraisal I just mentioned. And of course, you have in evidence to the appraisal from your tax folks, and that was $1,190,000, $1,193,000. That appraisal had 3 properties, which is, probably the minimum number you'd want to have. So I'm feeling comfortable with the appraisal I had, which has a total of had 4 per, so 8 properties. I feel there's a little bit of give in that area. Let me also mention the equivalency comparisons. I made a spreadsheet comparison. I'm an engineer, unfortunately, of 20 properties near my own house. I excluded, of course, anything that was in the tax-free properties that were less than 2,000 square feet. Mine's near 4,000 square feet. And I came up with a very good list, comparative list of properties that are in the current tax rolls. In those particular rolls, as you well know, you exclude I did not include land values of $35 a square foot, which is consistent with everybody. My building tax roll was assessed at $348 per square foot versus $221 per square foot for houses on my street, on both sides of my street, that were in my equivalency. So far and away, the highest assessed property in my neighborhood. And it was the highest of them all. So it was a little bit shocking in that sense. The 20 properties, by the way, had an average tax increase of 19% year over year. Mine was 82%. I think I've been able to kind of disallow the initial assessment. And so what I'm hoping to do is to hit much closer to my appraised values and your tax appraiser's value as well. And that was why I am making a request for the $1,090,000 appraised value. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Hear from the New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Good morning, David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property at 1526 6th Street is in the Garden District. It's definitely one of the premier neighborhoods of New Orleans. In reviewing for this hearing, I did an informal review in preparation. And in doing that, I actually concluded that the value that we had was slightly high. And the value that we initially came up with our independent analysis also landed a little bit on the high side. While my independent number was slightly north of both the tax commission and the taxpayers' value, it's still within reason. And for that reason, I feel that we are in a close enough range of the tax commission's value, and we feel that's fairly close to the taxpayer's request as well. And so that's where we stand on that one.
Can we hear from the LTC appraiser, please?
Good morning, Nicole Singley, appraiser for Louisiana Tax Commission. I did on January 9th complete an exterior only site visit of the subject. At that time, overall condition appeared to be very good. I completed a sales comparison approach and I estimated the market value to be $1,193,000 as of the effective date of January 1st. The 3 comparable sales that I used, I feel are nice, solid, sales. They're within close proximity. 2 out of 3 are located in the same neighborhood location known as Britannia Park. I was able to bracket the site size as well as the square footage. Adjustments, are not really excessive. The adjusted range came into a nice place. So with that being said, I feel that the opinion of value as of the effective date of the appraisal I provided is well supported.
Mr. Chair, I have 2 questions. For the taxpayer, just please reiterate what you felt your concluding value was.
Yes, 1,090,000. And if I may add one comment about the interior of the house. We have no pool, no garage. We focused on landscaping, and the original kitchen, since we bought it, never been updated, 12-year-old roof, those sorts of things are sometimes hard to see if you're looking from the outside in.
Thank you. And for the assessor's office, on our briefing sheet, from the Board of Review, there's a statement that the appellant agrees with assessment so long as the square footage is 3,996.
Yes, sir. I saw that note, and I'm not sure what was discussed with the hearing officer and the property owner at that time. I know that there was a mention of the square footage correction. There was a slight error that we corrected, and I'm not sure exactly what happened in that conversation.
So it appears, based upon the taxpayer's representation, that the taxpayer is not agreeing with the board, but if the square footage, that's the confusing part to me.
Yes, I was a little confusing when I read it as well. Yes, sir.
And I believe on your comps, if you just review those, I know 6th Street to 8th Street, it's only 2 blocks difference. Britannia Park is one label of a neighborhood, Coliseum is another label of a neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
I believe your comps had some Coliseum in there, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And is there a significant difference, even though they're both in Garden District theoretically?
Not a significant unit value difference there would be material difference. But like I was saying, in preparation for this, I did an independent analysis, just reviewing, and I do think that while our value is supported, I think it's on the max range for the neighborhood. And so that way, I feel that we definitely have some movement to come down.
No further questions, Mr. Commissioner.
Any other questions by any other commissioners? Do I hear a motion?
I have a motion. I recommend using the LTC staff appraisal for $266,700 on land improvements, $926,300, total of $1,193,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Eric E. Yeager versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-74011.
Good morning. Get to start her. Okay. Well, hopefully it's the first time doing this, so hopefully I could keep this short and sweet. When I looked at the numbers, I think for me, it was more of a uniformity issue of the neighborhood. So the comps that I pulled on my property at 2301 Chippewa Street, it's literally the two houses that are directly next to me and then one that's around the corner. So essentially the exact same houses. The houses were all built in the same time frame. They're pretty much the exact same square footage. When obviously not disputing the land, my land is almost the exact same as the two houses directly next to me. The interior square footage, I am 17 square feet less than they are. But when you look at the assessed value and the building value, I think there's a drastic difference. So for me, it was more getting in line with my neighbors and the block rather than disputing any of the other factors. So that is why I wanted to get I put forward the square price per square foot of the house that's two doors down from me at 190 square feet, and that's where I came up with my roughly $473,000 value.
New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Good morning. Once again, David Mahir, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property at 2301 Chippewa, it's a single-family property located in the Laurel Garden District area, approximately built in 2015. Our independent analysis, our CAMA value for the quadrennial landed the value at $575,400. Our independent analysis actually landed it at $633,000. The Board of Review recommended no change and affirmed the $575,400. In reviewing this, I saw that the property was acquired in October of 2020 for $598,900. Indexing that, the value of the 575 seems reasonable. The 633 would probably be more of a realistic value. However, we're not looking to raise anyone. So we are asking the 575,400 be affirmed.
Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, Nicole Singley again, Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser. Appraised the property January 9th, exterior only per the owner's request. I completed a sales comparison approach to value and I estimated the value to be $540,000 as of the effective date of January 1st.
Any questions for the taxpayer, the assessor, or the LTC appraiser?
Just one question for the taxpayer. The assessors represented that you paid $598,900 in 2020 for the home. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the commission?
I have a question for the Orleans Parish.
Yes, sir.
When y'all were looking at this, did y'all look at what he talking about as far as the uniformity? Was this applied across the board as far as the value raised in that area?
The CAMA system doesn't necessarily plot it out like that. So there always will be anomalies based off of condition criteria and certain variables that's put into our CAMA system. There could be people that are overvalued and undervalued. It's not a static number for sure. So we anticipate the values actually dipping and diving a bit from that point. It would make our life a lot easier to be static, but that's, just not realistic when you have various conditions and quality that's out there.
First, there he actually is.
When we complete our analysis, we're looking at the subject's value. We're determining his market value of the property. It's hard to get in there and dissect the revaluation and looking at all the neighboring assessments and trying to figure out if we're wrong, incorrect. Do we need to fix that? Do we not need to fix that? It was done uniformly across the board, systematic, all the way throughout the whole parish. So no one was singled out independently. We just didn't value one person. The whole city got revalued. At that point, the taxpayer can contest it, and ultimately, we're going to decide on market value of the property. I did have one last comment to the tax commission's evaluation. They landed at 540, but they had it in very good condition. Seems like it would be more excellent. If it would have been excellent, it seems like it would have been probably spot on to where we're kind of landed at.
Any other questions by the commission? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the value paid for by the Orleans Parish of the 575.4.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to the motion?
I'm gonna object, just based on the case of being uniformed amongst the street. Not that the case that the subject might be worth what they're saying. But and in the mass appraisal process, when you're amongst the same type of properties on the street, to have somebody valued at that much higher per square foot and then be the same quality of houses is ununiform. And so I'm going to base my objection on that.
Okay. Are there any other objections? Be a roll call vote, please.
Okay, at this moment, we're going to take a roll call vote on the appeal of Eric E. Yeager versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. All right, do we have? Gonna call them names, just call their names or say yea or nay?
Let's just be clear. We have a motion on the table to accept the new parish assessor's office appraisal of 134,400 for land, 441,000 for improvements for a total of 575,400.
Correct.
Chairman Russell,
Yay.
Commissioner Leone,
Yes.
Commissioner Romick,
Just to be clear, I'm voting for the property that I had made a motion for, correct?
yes.
Yay.
Commissioner Guidry, Commissioner Frazier.
Nay.
Okay. we have-
Motion carries.
Thank you.
We can call the next appeal.
All right, moving along, we have the appeal of Michael S. DeRoche versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72183.
Good morning.
My name's Michael DeRoche. I live at 5511 Woodlawn Place in the Lakeview section of New Orleans since 1992. My house, my property is adjacent to an active railroad line. And I get assessed the same as everybody else in the whole area per square foot. They don't take into account the location of the property. And when I go to sell the property, location is going to matter. So I feel that when I pay taxes on it, the location should matter. And that's my whole argument with it.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office.
David Mejia, once again, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property at 5511 Woodlawn Place, our value analysis is 386,600. Our independent analysis was slightly higher at 395, and the tax commission value is 350,000. And looking at this, we felt that 350,000 is it's a fair number. We did have a little bit of movement on that, and New Orleans is a very unique city. Living next to railroad tracks and cemeteries, it's something that's fairly common. And while I understand the taxpayer's request, the market doesn't demonstrate that it's really adversely affecting the value. The two appraisals completed by the tax commission are actually in similar proximity, and actually, ironically, they sold higher than the property that wasn't next to the railroad track, even though there was a location made for it. I'm not sure how that was extracted, but since the other sales were higher. But that being said, we understand that sometimes we make those assumptions that being next to something will lower your value. Ultimately, we're going to look at market data, and it doesn't appear to affect it. And we feel that the value is close enough, so we're okay with the recommendation, the final concluded value by the tax commission appraiser of $350,000.
Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Good morning, Luke Brewer with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I performed an appraisal on 5511 Woodlawn Place. I selected 3 comparable sales in the market approach. My value ended up being $350,000 with an undisputed land value of $135,000 with improvements being $215,000. 2 of the 3 sales were located near the railroad tracks like the subject, so no adjustment was warranted. The third comp was a little bit further away and not near railroad tracks. And so a 10% adjustment was made for location.
Thank you. Any questions for the taxpayer, the city of New Orleans, or the LTC appraiser? Hearing no questions, do I have a motion?
I motion to accept the LTC staff appraisal for 135,000 land, 215,000 improvements, total of 350,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we have the appeal of Charlton Camp versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-72058.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Charlton Camp, homeowner, 6846 Marshall Foch. My wife and I, first-time homeowners, purchased the house in 2021. I'll be very honest, I'm an expert in immunology, not in any of this. So I brought my father, who helped me do a lot of the work on some of this. But looking at the comps, when the original value came in, we felt it was very high. So we went to the Orleans Parish Assessors, really not to attest or, kind of combat the value of the land, but more so of the house based on previous appraisals, looking at comps, larger square footage that had lower values. So we kind of asked for 483, kind of gone through this whole process, coming back with the tax commissioners of 490, that we felt that was kind of a fair value. And so would kind of like to move forward with that based off of everything.
City of New Orleans?
David Mahia, once again, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property is 6846 Marshall Foch in the Lakeview neighborhood. Our value in the was $545,700 originally. The Board of Review has lowered it to $534,000. We completed an independent analysis that landed it at $547,000, nearly identical to our original assessment. And in preparation for this hearing, I was reviewing some of the taxpayers' documentation, and I came across an exhibit that was submitted to us that the taxpayer actually submitted an appraisal for $569,000, and they paid $560,000 for it in 2021. So with that being said, we felt that the lower number, the $530,400, was well within reason, based off of all the evidence that I reviewed.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Good morning, Luke Brewer, with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I did an appraisal on 6846 Marshall Foch Street, performed the market approach. After making appropriate adjustments, my value indication was $490,000, being $183,000 being undisputed land value, and the improvement value being $307,000.
Any questions for the taxpayer, the City of New Orleans, or the LTC appraiser?
I have a question for the LTC appraisal. You note the condition as being very good.
Yes, sir.
Whereas the Orleans assessor has it as excellent. The house is 13 years old. Is there a reason for the downgrade to very good?
No, sir. The reason I designated very good condition is because I performed an exterior only inspection, and I assumed the interior condition is similar to what was being shown on the exterior. It's hard for me to tell what the inside of the subject property is, so I made an extraordinary assumption. It very well could be in excellent condition, but I feel uncomfortable making that determination without properties around it being the same or without going inside it myself.
Thank you. And just to confirm, Mr. Chair, is the assessor accepting the Board of Review's value totaling 530,400? That's what you're presenting?
Yes, sir.
Are there any more questions? Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to accept the Parish Board of Review, the value of land, 183,000, improvement, $347,400, total of $530,400.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, motion is adopted.
Oh, he was telling me to object. Did I miss that chance, I'm guessing?
The objection's just for the board itself.
Okay,
It's to eliminate the need for a roll call vote, so.
okay. All right. Thanks, Josh.
All right. Taking up the appeal of A.A. Ab Gandhi versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review.
Sir, please sit down.
That's
Next shot. Oh, not me.
Which one?
I'll sit there. I'll sit back.
appeal of A.A. L. Delgado versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-77019.
Well, good morning, everyone. I originally came from overseas, from the Middle East. I've been living in the city of New Orleans for 53 years. The assessment value for my house is way too high. It went up to about 44%. And the house has been damaged, not heavily, by the hurricane, and it is sinking. And the inspection was very thorough by the assessor, your assessor, the commission assessor, Mr. Gillespie. And I feel that the amount which is assessed by the city is too high. I had an appraiser for repairing the house. It came up to $240,000. That is a lot of money to put back the house in good condition. The house was attacked by termites, and you can see the sides all around the house is cracked. And I put piling when I built the house. It looks like Hurricane Ida did its number on my house. So I feel that the value of my house should be as reported at $363,000. The commission assessor appraiser put it at $390,000 compared to the city of $517,000. They are very good people. Yes, the city is it's fine, nothing wrong. But I feel that the assessed value is too high.
Thank you. We'll hear from the city of New Orleans.
David Mejia, once again, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property at 173 30th Street, it's in the West Lakeview neighborhood. We've had some discussions with the taxpayers over the course of a number of years. So there was some square footage discussion that has happened over the course of time. The taxpayer indicated a number of years ago that there was a square footage error. The house was built approximately 14 years ago. The blueprints indicated 2982 square feet. We went out and there was like an open foyer or a vaulted ceiling of some sort, and we lowered the value of the square footage, excuse me, to 2773. We completed a change order, taxpayer was notified, and we had moved on from that number. A few years had passed, and the taxpayer claimed that it was 1,700 square foot. And we were like, we were just out there, we don't understand where that came from. And then in his exhibits, he actually states it's 2430 square foot. And then the tax commission came up with another value. I'm not sure where that was derived from, but everything, we've already been out there, and we feel confident in the 2773 based off of the blueprints that we found and the physical inspection. We completed an independent analysis on this property. Our value landed during the open roll process, during the tax year process at 537,700. Our independent analysis landed at 542. It's a 14-year-old home. Our staff appraiser has two comps in average condition, knocking it down in condition for its I'm sorry, it has one comp in average condition, and that comp sold for $491 and it adjusted out to $512,000. So, and these all were similar age, similar location, all there. So we have a couple of discrepancies just with the square footage, and we feel like the condition for a 14-year house, while it can be, you know, below excellent or below very good, it should be average at best. And we feel that our value is well supported, and we're just requesting that the value be upheld at 537,700.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I appraised the property at 173 30th Street. I met with Mr. Aldogani and discussed the condition of the property. And just to clarify the square footage, if you look on my report on page 3, you'll see a sketch that I've conducted in the previous appeal, which was last year, I believe. So I physically measured the property. I think maybe some of the issue with the question of the square footage may be, if you look at that sketch on the right side, the second floor, 234 square feet is kind of a loft area. It has open sides, so that may be what the question is. But I feel that's an accurate sketch. Okay, I used 3 comparable sales that were very near the subject in the same neighborhood. And unfortunately, all of the sales in that area are in excellent condition. So I had to make significant adjustments. But it's interesting to note that the taxpayer did provide a cost to cure of $204,000. After my adjustments, and I determined the market value to be $390,000. If you add that amount of $204,000 to that market value, you come up with roughly the sale prices of the 3 comparable sales. So I feel like this appraisal is accurate. After all of the adjustments, I determined the value to be $390,000, the land value to be $115,200, and the improvement value to be $274,800.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners?
I have a question for LTC. You mentioned the 204,000, and reading your report, it said from an independent party.
Yes, sir.
How was that, the validity of those costs justified in your adjustment? Just from that report, or did you do an independent analysis yourself to validate those costs?
No, sir, I did not validate the cost. I was just provided with a cost to cure from the taxpayer that apparently he had someone contracted to do the cost to cure. I just took the document as just something to study. I didn't use it in my appraisal. I just made a note that it was interesting that after my adjustments, adding the cost to cure to my market value comes up with the sale prices, or close to the sale prices of the comparables that I used.
So your adjustment wasn't driven by that
No,
independent
sir,
cost?
not at all.
And for the assessor, does the assessor have access to that cost as well?
We do have we do have a cost to cure that he submitted to us. I believe it might have been through a hurricane, some hurricane damage you had sustained.
So noting that the LTC's condition is average to fair, and the appraiser's condition is average, so basically equivalent.
Commissioner Guidry has a question.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chair. This is for the Orleans Parish Assessor. Mr. David,
Yes, sir.
you had mentioned that the taxpayer had mentioned something about some hurricane damage to the property. Was that damage evident when you did your assessment of the property?
Not apparently. Most of the damage we saw was external. There was some stucco damage. It appeared there was a gutter, some a window that looked like it was a little worn, but there was nothing that what we would consider material that we could I see as well. Right. That would have lowered it more than average.
Yes, the roof has been leaking since Ida. I put some before the hurricane. I put 27 panels of solar panels, and it looks like the hurricane moved the screws where they anchor the panels, and the ceiling was the roof was leaking, and I put about 15, 16 aluminum pans to hold it so the sheetrock will not be damaged. So I called the guy who installed the solar panels, and he sent somebody. He fixed it from inside where he sealed it, in other words. In addition, I think that the city, I think that the tax commission assessor were more thorough than the city inspector. The city inspector just came in around, and he did not even want me to be there. And he said, I can do it from outside, and I don't need you to take off from your work and come there. It was not that thorough inspection. I am sorry to say that.
Mr. Chair, I was just trying to get to a calculator without doing the math by hand. For the assessor's office, if you can do this, I can check it quickly, but if it seems to be that a difference in the square footage is the thought that there's a vaulted element and openness as opposed to enclosed living space that could contribute to the additional square footage to get to your 2773.
That's correct. That was physically measured in 2016. A change order was done. The taxpayer was notified, and that's the number we've been carrying. It coincides with his blueprints of 2982, which is I've never seen a 2982 come down to 2138. square footage ever. And I'm not sure where the taxpayer came up with 1,700. And then his own number says it's 2,430. But we've measured this physically, and this is the number we're going to stand with. Just because it was done, he accepted it. It was done in 2016, and it was all based off of that square footage correction.
And for the taxpayer, do you agree to the fact that the statement that you agreed to 2,773 as your square footage?
No, I did not. I think when he came, he said that when he came inside, number one, some of the blueprints were, when we constructed the house, they were modified. And when he came in, he said this area should not be included in the square footage, and he was supposed to take it out. I don't know if he did or not. He measured the area when he entered, which is a foyer, which is, as a matter of fact, where the second floor, the stairs go to the second floor. And I don't know if he took it out or not, but because my number, I took it out based on his recommendation. And most of the house from outside, it looks large, but it is all, porches.
Are there any additional questions by the commission?
I'm just not understanding. Maybe, David, you can help me with what's being said because I'm not understanding what the taxpayer is saying.
Yeah, in 2016, there was a discrepancy. The taxpayer came to our office, notified us that we were overstated in square footage. We ordered a field inspection. We went out. We were overstated. We corrected the square footage down to, it was currently it was 3,196, and we went down to 2,773. We notified the taxpayer. We completed a change order in 2016 based off of that corrected square footage. And it was done. It was put to bed at that point. A subsequent couple of years later, the taxpayer approached the office again, saying it was 1,700 square foot. We were like, we had just been out there. It can't be 1,700 square foot just looking at it. There's no way. So we reviewing this again, we just are reviewing our internal notes, and we started realizing that we've already been out there. We were out there. The notes indicate he was notified. The change order was based off of that corrected square footage. So we really don't have any basis to change it from there. And everything that I find is closer to that number, the 2,773. And so, and based off of us completing a change order and the taxpayer being notified, he would have had the right to disagree with that number at that point in time if that was incorrect.
Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I'd like to make a note here, please.
Go ahead.
The interior of the house, that second floor loft, I did go inside and measure that. I'd like to know if the assessor's office did the same.
In 2016, yes, sir.
I don't think so. They did not go upstairs. No. I was there the first time. The second time when he came, he did not want me to be there. So the first time he did not go upstairs. He just went inside, and even he did not go to the kitchen. I remember it as yesterday. But the first time, the commission assessor was very, very thorough.
Any additional questions from the commission?
And I think his assessment is correct. I will be glad to accept his assessment. His assessment is fine, is fair, and I will be inclined to accept his assessment, not the city.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm making a motion, and I'll just explain the thought behind it. I'm making a motion for a land value of 115,200 and a improvement value of 325,000 for a total of 440,200. The basis, I don't know how to come to a conclusion on the difference in the square footage, so I'm using the 2138 to the value per square foot for the assessor. understanding that if it was the full assessor's value of 537.7 and there is some damage to the property, that in a fair market trade, there could be a home inspection, take up some of these, whether it's a 204,000. I don't have any conclusive evidence that that's accurate, but anticipating some modification off of the sales price is the basis for my proposal.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any questions on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Darren J. Populon versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76128.
Do you swear or affirm this one, that the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Your name? Darren Populon. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. I'm here, lifelong resident of New Orleans, first time homeowner, 5214 Laurel Street. It is my family's home that was built in 1970. I've been living there since 2005, and I'm here because I believe that the assessment of the city for this year is way too high. Internally, there is damage to the ceiling, termite damage to the wall, asbestos floor tiles, various damage around the house, just wear and tear normally. Yeah, sorry. Just the house is showing its age internally, essentially. And I don't see how it could have increased the past year. I've done nothing to add to the value of the house because of financial limitations. So I don't see any reason for the increase.
Here from the City of New Orleans Assessor's Office.
David Mahia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, once again. This is 5214 Laurel. It's in the West Riverside neighborhood. Our initial valuation landed the value at $430,600. The Board of Review lowered the value to $402,400. Our independent analysis for this appeal landed it closer back to the $430,000 again. In reviewing the documentation, we feel like we probably have some movement. The house is somewhat atypical. It's a ranch. It doesn't quite fit the neighborhood. It does appear to have some deferred maintenance. So I do feel like we probably have some movement. I was landing a little north of the tax commission value independently, but a little south of the Board of Review. And I felt like a fair compromise would have been 378 even between the two values. But we do recognize that there's definitely some movement just because of the atypical nature. It's a ranch. You just don't find many ranch on slabs in that part of New Orleans.
I'd like to hear from the LTC appraiser, Nicole.
Yes, Nicole Singley, appraiser for Louisiana Tax Commission. I appraised the property located at 5214 Laurel Street. With that, I completed a sales comparison approach to value. My land value, which he did not contest, remained at $148,500. My improvement, $205,500 for a total market value of $354,000.
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, just to revisit the briefing sheet, there's a sentence that states that the homeowner recommends a 10% reduction in the assessor's market value for the building to reflect cost of repair. So if I'm assuming correctly, if we would take the parish assessor's office of $130,600, reduce that by 10%, it comes to roughly 388,000. And as I appreciate the assessors recommending 378,000 combined, I'd just like to ask the taxpayer, is that your recommendation, that 10%? Is that sentence accurate?
I recommend the Louisiana Tax Commission appraisal.
So
Of
you're not in
350.
agreement with that 10% reduction. You're looking for more than the 10%.
Yes.
The HO is from the hearing officer. Homeowner.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the Parish Assessor's Office adjusted value totaling $378,000, $148,500 for land. Within that total.
We have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? I'm sorry, is there any discussion to the motion? Any objection? Motion passes.
Next, we have the appeal of Jeff A. Mestroff versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-77024.
Yeah, next.
Hi, good morning. We're okay? Okay, Jeff Mextroth, live at 6500 Oakland Drive. Appealing the appraisal of the assessor's office in Orleans Parish. I tend to agree with most of Mark Gillespie's sales comparisons. Land value, I agree. I'm amenable to $185,000. I think Mark had the improvements at 165, making the total appraised value at 350. I think improvements should be 120. Therefore, I submitted an appeal for a total value of $305,000. Looking at Mark's sales comparison, two of them are under 300 and one is at 469. The property that's at 469 is kind of an aberration. The family that bought it for 1.7 overpaid. They moved in 4 months later, they put it up for sale. They can't take the noise from I-10. They don't want to raise their family in that environment. That house right now is for sale at 1.55. It's on the MLS right now. If you take the value at 155, by the way, they had an open house last weekend. No one came through. They'll probably have to lower it again. But if you take that 90,000 off, you have three appraisals on the sales comparison appraisals that are all under 300,000. Also, note number 3, Mark said taxpayer says most of the repairs are completed from IDA, and it was probably my fault, Mark. Sorry. I brought the email chain. Well, first of all, I brought a picture. The roof still hasn't been replaced, and the wood is getting rotten. I've had 2 roofers out there. Each said they fixed it. They didn't. So I'm looking at a complete new roof now. I was lucky enough to get in the fortified program, and so I have to go. I'm in their process, so getting their appraisals. But Mark asked if all the I sent him what Disaster Solutions said there were $169,000 in repairs that needed to be made. I think that's high. That Mosley McClinney firm was no good, and why this is taking so long. My insurance company wouldn't talk to me because they said you're represented by an attorney that was absent, so it was on hold. But anyway, Mark emailed me and said, first, we need to confirm the condition of the property. If it's average, then I will not be required to perform an inspection if the property is fair. And then he talks about the disaster solution, and he asks have you completed repairs? And my answer was, I would say average condition, so I was agreeable to that. And I said, yes, Hurricane Ida damage. So Mark probably took, well, yes, I repaired it, but yes, Hurricane Ida damage, comma, and no, not all the repairs have been completed. So I don't blame Mark on that, but I think, you know, just the roof alone, if you don't even take into any of the other disaster solutions, things are about 45,000. So on the improvements, instead of 165, I said I take out $45,000 for Ida damage, and I came up with 120. So I'm at 305. Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser Mark Gillespie is at 350.
Can we hear from the LTC tax appraiser?
Yes, sir. Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I did speak with Mr. Mextroff and he said it was an average condition, but of course I don't think we discussed all of the other conditions. So I missed out on that. So obviously there are some repairs that need to be completed. I did the market approach, and I used two sales that are in the neighborhood, and unfortunately they're huge, and one of them being the property number 2 that he spoke about. And of course, he knows the market there much better than anyone. He lives there. So sale number 2 that I found in MLS appeared to be a market sale, and all indications were that it was a market sale. But once a buyer buys a property, they find out that, in fact, it is located next to I-10. It's a noisy, bustling highway, and that's been an ongoing issue with that area. So after my adjustments, and I also did a land appraisal as well, I determined the overall value to be, let's see, we get to that, 350,000, the land value 185,000, and improvement value 165,000.
Any questions from the commission?
I have just one question, Mr. Chairman. I noticed the question that keeps coming up is I-10. Were the comps that were done on the houses that's in here, were they adjacent to I-10 also?
Yes, sir. In fact, sale number 1 and sale number 2 are right there in this particular street. Oakland is just a one street, one road subdivision with, I'm going to guess, maybe 15 or 10 to 15 houses, and they're all in that area. However, I can see for sale number 2, beautiful home. It's huge, and I can see someone purchasing that home and then finding out that after they purchased it, there's a lot of noise right there next to I-10, and that's what Mr. Mextroff was getting at earlier. But they are in the neighborhood, and they're much larger in square foot size. I typically would not use a sale like that, but it's in the neighborhood, and I felt like I had to use those. So
Before we move on, I apologize. I didn't recognize David in that census office. David.
Thank you. My wife never recognizes me much either, so I'm kind of used to that. So David Mejia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, 6500 Oakland. We are typically in the ballpark most of the time with the Tax Commission's analysis. In this instance, we're nowhere near the same valuation. Our independent analysis landed this value at 621,000 is what we prayed for. Our original value was 633,900. I've attached several exhibits. I completed an independent appraisal landing at 621. Comps 4, 5, and 6 are all on Oakland. Comp 4 had some owner financing disclosed in the act of sale, so it wasn't given weight in the final reconcile. It wasn't adjusted for by the Tax Commission either. The other comp felt like it was accurate, and that it was probably the best comp was 6540 Oakland, which was 2,500 square foot. It sold in average condition. It sold for 800,000, and that after adjustments adjusted down to 715. I also completed a site sales analysis. And that would be exhibit number 3. Also, just one other, well, I'll get to that. So the site sales analysis, I have several sales included in there. The median price per square foot came out at $47. The mean price per square foot came out to $49.55. We feel our $35 is strongly supported for that neighborhood. So we're recommending the land value be affirmed based off of the sales documentation presented. Exhibit 4 is just some of the things that jumped out from the tax commission appraised value. Some of these adjustments were just enormous, and there was external obsolescence adjustments made as well. Although the sales don't seem to conclude that external obsolescence is an issue based off of the 2 sales that sold probably closer to the interstate. So we're concluding external obsolescence, but the market's saying something else, similar to the one we had earlier in a hearing where the sales were actually higher next to the railroad than not. So there was just, I lay out some of these adjustments, 215,000 for a condition, 299,000 for gross living area, a $53,000 adjustment for a garage, an $86,000 adjustment for garage. I mean, these are some massive adjustments, and I could not extract these from any kind of data source that I reviewed and any kind of colleague that I spoke with. It's just, they were just really on the extreme end. So we just had definitely some issues with that. I also pointed out that this property was acquired in 1999 for $345,000. I did an analysis 25 years ago. The average price per square foot was $133. And the tax commission is essentially saying this thing is the same value as it was in 1999. It's just, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand. I also included current statistical analysis showing there's about 109 increase over that 25 years, or 4.3% over the per year as well. We also noted that the original square footage we have is 2,400 square foot, but it had a garage, and we're saying it doesn't have a garage, so we don't know if that was converted into living area or not. We'd like to maybe figure that out as well because of the big adjustments that the staff appraiser made of 86,000, 53,000 for garages. We would like to know that as well. There was also I had a lot of exhibits on this one. So yeah, so the exhibit 5 was the historical data and the original MLS data sheet. And then exhibit number 6, this is a breakdown of Oakland Drive. These are all properties on Oakland Drive. I've included the land rate, the improvement rate, the total unit rate. And going down to the tax commission's value, they would be a $146 total unit rate, $69 improvement rate, which would be significantly less than anything remotely close in Oakland. Ironically, Oakland is one of these areas that we get pretty much 0 appeals except Mr. Mextros. We have no other appeals out of this area. Our values are never really contested out of this area. That's always an indication to me that our values are in the ballpark. It's what we are always sort of trying to achieve, is to just try to be fair and get them in the ballpark. This is not a $350,000 neighborhood any way you slice it. It just isn't. So while we feel that the value, is close, I did come up with a slightly lower value, and we're requesting a value of $621,000.
Taxpayer, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to remember all his points. First of all, when I purchased the house, it was purchased fully furnished. The lady died. So the value that was stated in a sale is not the true value. Has my property depreciated since I bought it? Yes. Federal government determined that it did. I-10 added 2 extra lanes that brought it closer to our house. I tried to get them to build a sound barrier. They said, you only have 12 receivers. Correct. There's only 12 houses on there. You don't meet our economic analysis. They said, yes, you have diminution in value of your house. No question. Federal courts determine that, but we can't do anything for you. Go to the tax appraiser and get it down. So absolutely, the price that he's saying that was original is not the true price of land and improvements. It includes other things, and absolutely, the property values have gone down. Now, on page 4, comparables 4, 5, and 6. 6 backs up to the 9th fairway of a golf course. My house backs up to a parking lot. They're not at all comparable. Number 4, he says is 252,000. My comparable should be based on comp 4. They lived there also for 4 months. Their dad bought it. The couple got a divorce over it. They had to move out because of the noise of I-10. The guy's dad bought it, held on to it until someone else came around to buy it. And this is the most recent sale. The comp that the assessor's office says makes my house at 252,890. That's what they say based on the most recent comp. This is a couple that bought it that has flipped 4 houses in the past. On paper, it looks good, but until a family moves in. Now you have the only 2 most recent sales, both of which they put on the market. One has not sold yet. The price is below what they paid for it by about $250,000. Golf course versus a parking lot is certainly not comparable. And then on his first page, the question you asked about I-10 with these other 2 comps, 4 and 5, are they close to I-10? No. Evelyn and Marcia, not only do they have a sound barrier from I-10 to theirs, but they're how many blocks away from I-10? Blocks, not one house off. Maryland Drive, what is it, a mile away from Interstate 10? That's why they don't talk about, using those comparables. They're not even comparable. So sticking with 4, 5, and 6, one's on a golf course. 5, they just overpaid. It's on the market right now in MLS for $250,000 less. And 4, they say it's worth $252,890. My house would be worth. Ask the question if I missed any of what the assessor's office brought to y'all.
Any questions from the commission?
Yes, sir, I have questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, may I speak? So he said, based on the average value, this makes me irate. So there's 3 houses and 1 across, right? 2 across. Number 4 is right across. So in these 4 houses, the one to the left has an age freeze. What are they paying?
Please
Oh,
direct
I'm
your
sorry.
comments to the commission, not to the assessor's office.
Oh, so Shimmick's house has an age freeze. I don't know what it is, but you can look it up. The assessor can put $1.8 million on it and say, oh, well, Jeff, your house is comparable to them. They don't complain because they have an age freeze. They don't need to come here or to the Board of Review. The person on the right, Lago, age freeze, he's well below what the assessor's office thinks their house is right. Those are not comparable. The one across the street, Proppers, age freeze. Once again, that argument doesn't hold water. I'm sorry. I know it's my house.
Thank you. Get back
We
to
don't
you.
have any kids on the street. We would love these two new families, to go. I just see it going down. I-10 is getting more traffic. The brake dust is all over the cars. Yeah, I hose them off every morning. It's a shame.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Roman.
Yes, I have a question for LTC, Mr. Gillespie.
Yes, sir.
So you've adjusted this value down quite a bit to get to 350,000. Is that primarily because of the expressway down ramp?
No, sir, it's,
that-
I'm sorry. Not just, not just because of the expressway. In fact, if you'll notice on my grid on page 5, the assessor indicated that I made significant external obsolescence adjustments. I only made one adjustment to sale number 3 because it is not on the same street as the subject, whereas sales 1 and 2 are. So that was kind of misleading. The most significant adjustments, I think, were for the square foot size. The 2 sales that are on the street, that are the most, unfortunately, most similar, but they're just much larger. They required significant size adjustments, and I didn't really want to use those, but I didn't have an option because there was nothing else. I think a lot of the sales that the assessor is using are not within our quadrennial, or not the ones on the street. And of course, Mr. Mextroth mentioned a sale at the end of the street on the golf course. Of course, I didn't want to use that one because it's not comparable at all. Now, after hearing what the taxpayer indicated about the condition, I think I actually might be a little high. So that's my take on it.
So, Mr. Gillespie, you earlier valued a property on Woodlawn next to a railroad track with a value of 350,000 that the commission accepted. So are you saying this house on Oakland is less in value than the one on Woodland?
I'm not sure. I don't think that was my appraisal.
5511 Woodlawn?
I don't believe so. No, sir.
I'd let the record show that we had accepted something in next to a railroad for 350,000. Mr. Mextroth, how long have you lived in the house?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think I bought it in May of '99.
And is your house livable?
Yes, I live in it.
Do you have a tarp on the roof?
No, but I have buckets.
Do you consider the size of your property absent the height of it different than your neighbors in typical form?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
so?
Oh,
Are their lots much bigger than yours?
oh, yeah, double.
And the traffic on I-10, you're at the down ramp as the ramp comes along the expressway heading downtown at Metairie Road.
Right.
To my knowledge, those lanes have not been expanded on that overpass.
Yes, they were. As you're, well, I think they were. Yeah,
There are,
of course
there are
they were.
3
You can
lanes with
see
an
the
exit
new
lane coming to
pilings by
Metairie
the
Road.
By the cemetery to do it. Yes, it was. I know Mark was, and a previous, I brought the whole docket of what, the I-10 was expanded in both directions, an extra lane with pull-off.
In what year?
If I may, there's a map in my report on page 3.
Okay.
So you're not abutting directly the expressway down ramp. You're set off of
I'm-
that service
I'm
road, a
within
couple of
100 feet.
houses.
I'm with 100 feet of I-10 cars with no sound barrier.
And does the assessor have any evidence of the neighbors saying that they have to move because of the noise, or is that Mr. Mextroth's representation only?
No, we get no appeals out of this neighborhood. The property owner directly adjacent, it's closer to the interstate, and it's never contacted our office. So no, we don't have any record of that. And just, Mr. Gillespie, I apologize. It was the external obsolescence adjustments were made on their site sales, not necessarily his sales comparison sales, but on site sales, he's made large sales, but he also used comp 3, which is in the Hollygrove Dixon area, which is that's not even a comparable neighborhood. that's not, doesn't attract the same market participants.
No further questions, Mr. Commissioner.
I have a question for the city of New Orleans, just as a point of reference. Regardless if there's a freeze, an age freeze or not, you'll still set the value of the house according to everything else you normally do.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the Orleans Parish Assessor's value of $621,000 total.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Motion is approved.
Thanks.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of SWP Incorporated versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-74083.
Okay. Can you hear me all right? All right. Good morning. Oh, this is nerve-wracking for me. I'm 84, so it's hard for me to do these things. But let me just give you what I compiled as net, which I've now lost. See if we put it in here. This is a older property and it was assessed for the last 4 years at $227,000. And the New Orleans tax has tried to increase it by 71+%, and nothing has been done to it interior. My son, who has Parkinson's, had been living in it, and he moved out, and so then I was able to rent that side this past year, and I was able to put a new roof on it. So I did have that major expense this past year of $13,000+. But other than that, there's not been any really improvements to it. It has air conditioning units. It has average kitchens that are aged. It has aged bathrooms. I have some pictures that I thought I'd sent. I don't know if I did. I don't know if you want them. I don't think you all take more stuff today. But it's 8-foot ceilings. And most of the properties that sell for good prices in those areas are selling because they have architectural amenities. They have high ceilings. They have molding. They have all the things that people pay extra for. And this house doesn't have any of those things. Nothing major has been done. My husband died 9 years ago and he had Alzheimer's before that. So there really hasn't been anything done to it except to try to fix things when they break. I just don't understand the appraisal they put on it. I have heavy maintenance. I just got my last tax return and I only lost $1,200 this year on it. The year before I lost $5,000 on it. So I was hoping this year I'd make a little money, and then with the tax increase, that's going to be harder to do. There's nothing that increases the value as far as the interior is concerned. And window units, the electricity and plumbing haven't been updated since we bought it, and that was back in '75, I believe. It has a shared water meter, so I have to pay the water for the tenants. I guess that's about it that I have to say about it. I keep it because of my son, because he may need to move back into it. So that's why I still have it.
Thank you. New Orleans.
And I don't know how to do all of these assessment kind of things, so.
You did excellent. You did great.
Yes,
New
sir.
Orleans Assessor's Office?
David Mahia, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property's 911 6th Street, located in the Irish Channel. This was a quadrennial reassessment, so it was not driven from a permit or anything that you did specifically. It was done through just neighborhood sales analysis over the course of 4 years. We extract out a run rate essentially and apply it to any given neighborhood. We do feel like there is some movement on this value of the property. Our analysis landed at 390,400. We independently valued it at 380. The tax commission's at 299. One interesting part about the tax commission that we don't do on fourplexes or duplexes, we do not apply a GRM in our CAMA analysis. If there's enough sales, we will fully employ the sales comparison approach and deriving a value. So I just want to point that out just for the record. The sales comparison value is 310. I do feel like there's a little bit of compromise on this value. And my crunching of the numbers, I came up with a recommendation of 332, which would be down from the 390,400 and down from our independent analysis of 380, but slightly north of the 299 that the tax commission ruled at. So I do feel like there's a little bit of movement. I feel that's more than generous. We have comp number 2 in our independent analysis just to demonstrate it sold for 420,000, 929 7th Street. It's very close, and it's not in great shape. It needed some work, and it's just what people pay for in those neighborhoods. And I know sometimes that's not fair as for people who have stayed there and use them as income producing properties or family properties, but it just kind of shows what market participants are willing to pay for properties in the Irish Channel. But with that being said, I still feel like there's some movement.
Thank you. Can we hear from the
Yep.
LTC appraiser?
Hello, Nicole Singley, Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser. I appraised the property located at 911 6th Street. For this property, our taxpayer was contesting both land value as well as improvement. So with that, I had to, I went ahead and I completed the sales comparison land approach piece that I'm going to talk about first. Her site value is assessed at $35 a square foot, which is uniform for the market area and neighborhood. With the approach that I did, it came out slightly higher, it was $40 a square foot, bringing the land value to an opinion of $196,800 versus the land value of $172,200. That is the assessor's value. Part 2 of my appraisal assignment was I completed a sales comparison approach to value as well as an income approach to value. I gave both of those opinions somewhat of an equal weighting system, arriving at a value of $299,000. Just want to bring to your attention that that is with the land value of $196,800, given the improvement a value of $102,200. But once again, that total reconciliation analysis value of $299,000.
Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I just have a question. There's such a disparity, it seems to me, that I'd like to understand if possible. Both LTC and the assessor's office assess the condition as average. So just I guess more so from the LTC appraisal side as to, with that average, the price per square was from a sales approach? Or a
I'm sorry.
market approach, I'm sorry.
So what we do is when we do those two approaches to value, we reconcile and blend them. So if let's see here. So based on the sales comparison approach to value, using my three comparable sales, which, of course, well, 2-family residential dwellings, and like you said, average condition, 2 out of 3 were average condition, having to adjust for the one that's in very good condition. We do typically a 10% adjustment from the sale price of the comparable sale. So with the sale comparison approach to value, I arrived at a opinion of value of 310,000, excuse me, for the subject. Then, because it was an income producing property, we complete that income approach and pull, try to find 3 most similar rentals in the market area, or we can actually use the actual rents. But in this case, the actual rents, were not provided. So with this income approach, I arrived at a estimated value of 288,600. So I gave them equal weight, and that's where I came to my opinion of value. Where is it? Of that 299,000. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I guess just as a point of comparison, I heard you say that the rents were not provided.
Yes,
But
sir.
you did a an income approach.
Yes.
And for the assessor's office, was that income approach also used? Just trying to understand
No,
with-
sir, that was, the statement I was making. We do not use a GRM approach, when there's sufficient, market sales for us. We'll typically use those for, units 5 or above. And one thing I'd point out, I don't think we're too far off. Tax Commission's comp number 2 is slightly outside of the Irish Channel, and comp 3 is totally outside of the Irish Channel. I think if we would have stayed within the Irish Channel, we probably would be fairly close. I think that we're being fair in our recommendation.
And just one more question for the taxpayer, I'm sorry, but your requested value on your improvements is 153,850. Do you,
I think I requested it stayed the same, which was 227.
right, so keeping the land as it was and keeping the improvements as it was in previous years is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Any other questions from the commission?
I have a question. What's the value of the land right now in the area? What is it?
172,200.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. It's 35 a square foot is what it appears to be uniform for the area.
Any additional questions from the commission? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to accept the LTC's appraisal of 172,200 for the land and 126,800 for the building, for a total value of 299.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, I was going to go with the land value as is uniform in the neighborhood, but suggest maintaining the improvement value as it had been for the taxpayer in previous years. By doing so, you'd end up with a value of, say, 326,000.
We have want to make that in the form of a motion? We'll have 2 motions. We can vote on each one separately. We're all new, so some of this is uncharted water for us.
So the motion that's been offered by Commissioner Frazier is to set the value at 299. The LTC staff, Commissioner Frazier can choose to substitute his motion or move forward with the motion. Chairman will solicit if there's any objections to that motion, at what point there'll be a roll call vote.
I'm going to move forward with the motion.
We have a motion on the table from Commissioner Frazier. You want to restate the values, please?
For the land value, 172,200, the imp value of 126,800 for a total value of 299.
Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Chairman Russell,
Yay.
Commissioner Leone,
Yay.
Commissioner Romick, Commissioner Guidry, Commissioner Frazier.
Yay.
Motion is adopted.
Which one? Thank you.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Lawrence B. Blackwell Jr. versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-73257.
Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, panel. How are you? Hello. Dean Gilbert.
You can go ahead and
Okay. I'm here to contest the appraisal on behalf of Lawrence Blackwell of 11284 Lake Forest Boulevard. The house has suffered extensive damage from Hurricane Ida, which hasn't been repaired yet because of an ongoing dispute and lawsuit that we have with the insurance company. Unfortunately, in the interim, since Ida, it's suffered more damage because of the initial Ida damage. That goes with the damage incurred from the interior based on the roof leaks. And I've had, including in your packet, I've had an engineer come out there and do an assessment, Gertler Brothers, an assessment of the property. And of course, your inspector came to the property and did a thorough inspection of the interior. And I've also had recently, as a function of the lawsuit, had a scientist come out there to discover to evaluate the mold and the type of mold, the spread of the mold, and the amount of money that it would take to correctly abate the mold. And I don't think that, or mitigate the mold. And I don't think that the assessment that we had, generally, all properties went up from the reassessment uniformly without any appreciation of the interior. So we were covered under that, but I think that unlike the appellate process, the commissioners, the tax assessor really never came in to determine if the house was habitable or not, or the extent of the damage, which is ongoing and it's really increased with the past rains, more so than it was when the assessors came, to take an assessment of the property. But the assessor, I believe, did determine the property condition to be poor, when they did their inspection. And we just want something fair until it can be brought, back up to a condition where it's habitable.
We'll hear from the New Orleans Assessor's Office.
David Mejia, once again, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. The property is 11284 Lake Forest Boulevard. We did have this property misclassified as repaired. It was valued at $304,500. We did recognize that it was in poor condition. The Board of Review lowered it to 185. The taxpayer's initial request was 180,000. The Board of Review lowered it to 185. The taxpayer subsequently appealed that value. The tax commission's analysis landed at 136. Our independent analysis landed at 140. We were willing to compromise with either one of those numbers, and the taxpayer didn't accept or reject, and he moved forward with the appeal. But we feel that both of those numbers they're only a couple of $1,000s apart from each other.
We hear from the LTC appraiser.
Hello, Nicole Singley, appraiser for the tax commission. I did complete the appraisal of the property at 11284 Lake Forest Boulevard. Let's see here. The property was verified and confirmed as poor condition, as we did complete both interior and exterior inspection of the property. I completed a sales comparison approach to value, and I estimate the market value to be 136,000. And I can elaborate more if needed, but it does support to be in poor condition.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Yes, I have a question for the parish assessor. Mr. David, the house is not livable, is that correct?
That is correct. It is poor condition. It's in Lake Bullard. It's a nice neighborhood in New Orleans East. It's a decent amount of square footage. So there's a term in appraisal theory where there's only so far you can knock it down. It's just diminishing returns. It's just eventually you get to a certain point where renovators, flippers, investors will pay certain prices for properties in any condition. And it's a decent neighborhood. It is in poor condition though. We do recognize that, and it definitely needs to be adjusted from our original number for sure. And even from the 185 Board of Review number, we still feel that's a little high. I just don't know what the taxpayer is requesting, because he requested 180 originally.
Any other comment? Any questions from the commission? Hearing no questions, may I have a motion?
I have a motion to take the LTC staff appraisal of 42,400 land, 93,600 improvements, total 136,000.
We have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? Any discussion? I'm sorry, first on the motion. Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appeal of Donna P. Castana versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72052.
Since the taxpayer is not here, we'll go to the City of New Orleans Assessor's Office.
These are fairly simple. David Mejia, once again, for Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. Just to confirm, we're on docket number 2052-563 Ada. That's correct? Okay, just want to make sure I have the right docket. This property, we valued it at 375,600. Board of Review lowered it at 352,500. The tax commission valued at 345. We appraised it at 365. And an offer of good faith, we had initially offered this taxpayer 330,000. So just in full disclosure, I'll go with the lower number, even though all the numbers support a higher number. But we had offered her that, and so just a sign of good faith, we'll be willing to keep that initial value that we offered them at 330,000.
Okay. Any questions? LTC appraiser.
Yes, good morning. Luke Brewer with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I performed an appraisal on 5633 Ada Place. I performed a market approach or comparable sales approach. All three sales were right on top of the subject property within 0.1 miles. And my opinion of value after making appropriate adjustments was 345,000. The undisputed land value being 132,000, with the improvements being 213,000. And it seems like we're all pretty close in numbers.
Okay, any questions by the commission?
Just one question. Go back to the 330 again. Tell me what you,
In an offer to settle during the board review process, we had, offered to settle at 330,000. The taxpayer did not request that. Even though our valuations are all coming in higher, I just want to put that out there that we did offer that. So I'd like to stick with that number. It helps the taxpayer out a little bit on the lower end.
Okay, any other questions for the city or for the appraiser? Hearing none, may I ask for a motion? We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Joe Fish Properties versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-73003.
The taxpayer is not present, so we'll go to the City of New Orleans Assessor's Office.
David Mejia, once again, Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, property at 1728 Lesseps. It's a pretty similar situation as our prior appeal. We have offered to settle this value at 132,600. The taxpayer rejected the settlement, filed a subsequent appeal. The board review actually affirmed our higher number at 147,300. And then the tax commission's value came in at 130,000, nearly identical to what we had offered at 132,600. So we feel that that's also in the ballpark, from our initial offer. We're just within a couple thousand of each other.
Okay, any comment from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Mark Gillespie with the Tax Commission. I did an appraisal at the property 1726 Lesseps Street and determined the overall market value to be $130,000, land value $14,900, and the improvement value $115,100.
Any questions for the city or the appraiser, LTC appraiser? Hearing no questions, may I hear a motion from the commission?
I have a motion to accept the LTC staff appraisal for $14,900 on land, $115,100 improvement, $130,000 total.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes.
Please note for the record that the remainder of our agenda has been settled.
Since there is no further business of the commission, I hear a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion is adopted.